When you think of a cleric, what image conjures itself into your mind? Is it the image of a priest-like character using holy magic to inspire and heal their allies, perhaps? What if I told you that there was much more to the cleric than that? Stick around. I'm going to show you the cleric in a brand new light, and together we'll find out how versatile they really are. Welcome back, travelers. I'm glad to see you made it. I'm Colo, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Cleric class in Baldur's Gate 3. We'll be going in depth into their subclasses, their spells and abilities with a little bit of lore to spice things up. Some of the information and images in this video did come from the Baldur's Gate 3 wiki at bg3.wiki. Those guys do a great job collecting and organizing information. It's a really easy to use wiki setup. Highly recommend checking them out. I'm going to leave a link in the video description below, but definitely give them a look. So let's get into it. Firstly, I want to cover some information about creating a cleric as a custom character, but we will definitely discuss Shadowheart as well, because a lot of people are going to use Shadowheart as their group's cleric. It's what I did, it's what most people are going to do, so we'll cover both. When creating a custom character, you can pick whatever race you want. If you want to play as a halfling cleric, do it. If you want to play as a tiefling cleric, nothing's stopping you. However, there are bonuses that you can get if you choose certain races. If we take a look at the Githyanki cleric, they are granted proficiency with great swords, long swords, and short swords just because of their previous past growing up with the Githyanki. They're all trained in combat like that, so they know how to use a sword. Shadowheart, on the other hand, being a half-elf, was given proficiency with pikes, spears, halberds, and glaives for her racial weapon proficiencies. Wood elf clerics and half wood elf clerics would have bonus movement speed, so they'd be able to move further during their turns, so on and so forth. There's benefits and drawbacks to each race. Take a look at all of them, or just pick whichever one you like the looks of the best. Like I said, it's not going to hold you back. Play whatever you like. Clerics are unique when it comes to character creation as well, because when you make a cleric, you get to pick a deity to be a follower of. If you're using Shadowheart as your cleric, her deity's already been chosen because that's a big part of her personal storyline, her personal quest. So that's already been chosen for you if you're going to use her. Loth Sworn Drow can only choose Loth as their sworn deity, which makes sense because they're Loth Sworn. I would recommend being careful going down that path, because Loth is known for turning her devout followers into these precious creatures whenever they don't live up to her standards. Luckily, this isn't going to happen to you in the game, so you're welcome to worship the Spider Lady if you want, but that's going to be up to you. I am eventually planning on making a video going much more in depth into the gods of this universe and taking a look at each one of them individually. There's definitely some interesting stories to be told, so be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. That way, whenever I post videos in the future, that you're notified and you can come watch them. Now that we've got our race and deity chosen, now you have to decide which subclass, or domain as they're called, your cleric is going to belong to. Each one of these domains is going to have access to the cleric's entire spell book by the time you get to max level. So each one of these, there's 7 of them, all of them are going to have the same base spell list. And then, as you level up, you're going to get domain-specific things at certain levels, which will vary drastically. The domain spells you're going to get are always prepared, so you don't have to prepare and unprepare them in your spell book. They're just always available. It definitely opens up the cleric to being able to cover multiple roles in the same group. Let's go through and take a look at each one of the domains individually, and we'll cover the spells and abilities that each one grants you if you decide to go down that route. The first subclass on the list is the Life Domain. This is probably the one that fits the image that we talked about at the beginning of the video most closely. This is the Healer Cleric. They use holy magic to keep their teammates safe and keep their hit points topped off, just like you were probably imagining. When you first choose this domain, you will receive the Disciple of Life ability, which will cause your healing spells to restore a couple extra hit points and passively over time, this ends up adding up to a ridiculous amount of extra healing that gets done. This is a super strong ability overall. You also gain the Cure Wounds and Bless spells as domain spells, and the Life Domain Cleric will also get proficiency with heavy armor, so you can cast spells while wearing heavy armor without having to invest a feat to unlock that proficiency, which is really strong. At second level, each domain is going to receive their first divinity charge, the Turn Undead ability, and also a domain-specific ability that will use channel divinity charges as well. The Life Domain specifically is going to gain access to the Preserve Life domain action. This is an AoE heal that triggers from your cleric's location, so you can use one of your actions and a channel divinity charge, and it will cause basically an explosion of healing around your cleric that'll heal any allies that are caught within it. It's a very strong skill. If your guys are all close enough together, this will count for a ton of healing, especially since each person that gets healed by that cleric's AoE heal gets bonus healing from the other passive you already have, and there's much more down the line that unlocks to where more effects go off once you heal people. It's crazy. Life clerics are really good healers. They're probably the strongest healers in the game. At third level, every cleric will be granted access to all of the level 2 cleric spells. Like I said, all clerics end up with the same base spell list, as well as 2 domain spells, which are Aid and Lesser Restoration, as long as you're playing the Life Domain. Pay attention to the fact that Aid can be cast at higher levels if you want to upcast it, and it works on summonable minions, all your party members. So group up everybody in your camp before you cast the spell, and give your party a massive amount of maximum HP boost just by casting this one spell where everybody is. A Lesser Restoration cleanse debuffs off of your party members whenever they have them. You won't find nearly as many uses for that as you will Aid, but it's still a good spell to have. Upon reaching 4th level, your cleric will gain access to their first feat. The feat levels are going to be big. There's ability improvement that you can take to increase your base stats, which is good because you increase the stat by 2. It basically gives you a +1 on all rolls that are related to that stat. So increasing your stats is a big buff in this game. Or you can take one of the feats. Things like Warcaster is really good if you're trying to maintain concentration on spells while you're in combat. There's also the Spell Sniper feat, which if you're planning on going more of a caster DPS route for your cleric, Spell Sniper might be a viable choice. It grants you access to one of these cantrips and basically doubles your chance to crit with spells. So that's excellent. On top of getting access to this feat, you're going to get to choose another cleric cantrip, and you'll also be granted another level 2 spell slot. 4th level for the cleric it's pretty strong. You're going to get quite a bit of good stuff. At 5th level, the cleric gets access to all their level 3 cleric spells, as well as the Scaling Cantrips ability, which increases the damage of your cleric cantrips. You'll also get the Destroyed Undead passive ability, which causes successful Turn Undead casts to deal a decent chunk of radiant damage to any targets that actually are affected by the turn. The Life Cleric is also going to get the 2 domain spells, Revivify and Beacon of Hope. Both of these spells are excellent. You're going to be glad you have them on your bar, because Revivify allows you to bring fallen teammates back to life. You click on the target that you're trying to resurrect, you click destination, and it'll attempt to res that target in that destination. Very strong. Beacon of Hope is a buff that you cast right before you would do like a bunch of party-wide AoE heals or something like that, because what Beacon of Hope does is, instead of having a roll happen where it determines how much healing each spell is going to do, it just instantly heals them for the maximum amount. So if you're doing heals on 5, 6, 7 targets and all those heals are guaranteed maximum healing numbers, you are outputting a ridiculous amount of heals, so this buff is very strong. At 6th level, all clerics are going to receive another Channel Divinity charge, another level 3 spell slot, and 4 of the 7 subclasses are going to receive another domain-specific ability. Life clerics do get something here. You will obtain the Blessed Healer passive ability. This causes the cleric to also be healed for a few hit points every time they heal someone else. This ability right here pretty much makes it to where you never have to specifically target a heal onto your cleric ever again, because they are going to be healing everybody else, and every time they heal somebody else, they get a heal, to the point where the cleric basically never has to be targeted with a heal ever again. At 7th level, your cleric will get access to their level 4 spells, as well as 2 more always prepared domain spells. The life cleric gets Guardian of Faith and Death Ward at 7th level. I don't find myself using Death Ward very often. I'm sure someone loves it. It's just not been a spell I've had to use a lot. Guardian of Faith, on the other hand, is incredibly useful. This is basically a little angel that acts as kind of a stationary turret. You'll see a ring around the Guardian that will show you the radius of its attacks, and any enemies that come within that ring or attack somebody in that ring or anything like that, this Guardian is going to react and is going to take a swing at them. It's going to hit these people for 20 damage, I believe, and then it also deals 20 damage to itself. At 8th level, the cleric will receive their 2nd feat. So, like we talked about before, the feat levels are very powerful. You'll get another level 4 spell slot and another domain specific ability. 2 of the subclasses will receive the potent spellcasting passive ability, which adds the cleric's wisdom modifier to the damage they deal with cleric cantrips. So, more damage added to your cantrips. The other 5 subclasses will receive a divine strike ability, which will add damage to your next weapon strike. The type of damage will depend on your cleric's domain. Life clerics specifically get the Divine Strike Radiant ability. Upon reaching 9th level, the life cleric will gain access to the level 5 cleric spell list, as well as 2 more domain spells. The life domain spells for 9th level are Greater Restoration and Mass Cure Wounds. Both of these spells are amazing. You're gonna use them both a lot. Put them somewhere on the bar where you can get to them quickly. Greater Restoration is a spell that gets rid of debuffs off your party members, and Mass Cure Wounds is just that. You get to cure a ton of people at once, which is always powerful, and the range on this thing is pretty good. When you get to 10th level, the Life Cleric is going to get another level 5 spell slot, another cantrip, even more cantrip damage scaling, and the Divine Intervention class action. This one's interesting. Pay very close attention to the wording on the spell. You can only use the ability 1 time per character. That's it. Once you click it, it brings up 4 choices. You'll choose which version of the Divine Intervention spell you want to cast, and once you cast that, the ability disappears off your bar forever. You can't use it ever again. This is something you definitely need to think about when you're planning on using it, and potentially, make your choice and use it, or save it for the perfect moment that may never come. That's what I'm doing. The 4 options you get to choose from are: number 1, Sunder the Heretical. AoE damage attack, a 50-foot radius that will potentially deal between 8 and 80 radiant damage to all enemies in the area. It's a big boom that goes off. The second one, Opulent Revival, a 60-foot radius circle around the cleric that will resurrect fallen allies, restore half of their hit points, and restore all nearby allies as though they had long rested. If everybody in your party is dead except the cleric, and you use that ability, you might win a fight that you were getting destroyed in just a second ago. You just have to make sure that your cleric doesn't die first. The third option you have is Arm Thy Servant. This one will place a legendary weapon, the Devotee's Mace, into your cleric's main hand. This mace is a permanent weapon. It's something that you own now. It's in your inventory. You can trade it to your other characters. It doesn't have to be the cleric that uses it. You can sell it to a vendor, whatever you want to do. It's a weapon that's yours now. It's a +3 mace, and it's got a healing aura ability that you can use that is very strong. The final choice is Golden Generosity. This divine intervention causes a chest to spawn in front of your character that contains a bunch of potions, elixirs, and camping supplies. You can get quite a bit of good stuff in this chest, but I'll leave it up to you whether it's worth using your one-time only spell to get some food and potions. Somebody out there is gonna yell at me in the comments about how this is the best one by far. I'm telling you right now, my cleric is never gonna use theirs for this because I would rather hold on to the amazing heal ability and never need it and never use it. But for that one instance where the cleric is the last man standing and you can come in clutch with that huge res and heal everybody, oh my god, that'd be excellent. That's good enough to justify never having this legendary weapon. But I'm gonna tell you a secret. Like I said before, divine intervention can only be used one time per character. So after your characters are 10th level, respec all your characters to clerics, use their divine intervention. You can spawn the mace on each one of them. You can spawn the box of food and potions if you want, and then change that character back to whatever class they were to begin with. And your regular cleric still has their divine intervention available for that other thing. So you can basically have your cake and eat it too if you want. At 11th level, the life cleric gains access to their level 6 spells list, which all clerics will get at this level. The level 6 spells for cleric have some very powerful options available as well. Also note, you can upcast other spells to level 6. At 12th level, all clerics are going to get their final feat. It's not a very exciting level as far as, class specific options, but like I said before, feat levels are always awesome. You're going to be excited to get to this one. All right, so anyway, let's recap the life cleric. You're going to gain access to a ton of bonus passive healing. You're going to get a ton of the healing and debuff cleansing abilities that you need as always prepared versions of spells. So you don't have to worry about putting them on the bar. They're going to be there. If you're looking for a healer, a solid through and through healer, I don't think the life cleric can be beaten in this game. So the second subclass we're going to discuss is the Light Domain Cleric. When you first choose this class, you will be awarded the Warding Flare ability, which basically will trigger as a reaction whenever your cleric gets attacked. It'll give you the opportunity to use Warding Flare to set off a blinding flash into the attacker's face, causing disadvantage on the attack and increasing the chances of the attack missing you. You will also gain the 2 domain spells, Burning Hands and Fairy Fire, which are both decent spells, and you'll receive the Light cantrip as well. The Light Domain Cleric also does not receive the Heavy Armor proficiency, so you'll either have to invest a feat point at level 4, 8, or 12 into Heavy Armor proficiency, or you can just wear clothing or light or medium armor. So you've got options. You don't have to be heavy armor. It's just nice to have if you can get it. At 2nd level, the light cleric will get the normal level 1 spell slot. You get your channel divinity charge. You get turn undead. And they will also be granted the Radiance of the Dawn domain action. This will use an action and a channel divinity charge to cause a 30-foot radius burst of light centered on your cleric. The light will deal damage to any enemies that are in the area, as well as dispel any magical darkness from the area. At 3rd level, you'll gain your level 2 cleric spells, your 2 domain spells, which are Flaming Sphere and Scorching Ray. Both of these spells are very good for different situations. Flaming Sphere is essentially a flaming boulder that you spawn, and you can actually control this thing on its turn like it's a minion. Roll it towards enemies and it'll burn them if they're standing too close to it. You can use it to block off doorways, and there's all different kinds of things you can do with it. Scorching Ray is a very interesting spell because just like Magic Missile, where you cast the spell and it lets you target multiple targets and you can see the little counters ticking up. You get 3 rays if you don't upcast it, that you can choose 3 different targets or put 2 of them on one target, 1 of them on another, or all 3 on one target if you want. It's a really versatile spell. At 4th level, the Light Domain Cleric is going to get an extra cantrip, a level 2 spell slot, and their first feat. At 5th level, the Light Cleric gains their level 3 spells, as well as scaling cantrips. You get Destroy Undead, 2 domain spells, which are going to be Daylight and Fireball. Daylight is a very interesting spell because it can be cast in one of 2 ways. You can either basically enchant an item with it by casting Daylight onto somebody's weapon. That weapon will be shining a huge area of daylight all over the place. Or you can cast it straight out into the world, basically leaving a floating ball of daylight sitting there. Fireball is much more straightforward. It is a massive exploding ball of fire that you hurl. This will deal crazy collateral damage to your own teammates. Be careful where you're flinging these things, but it's absolutely going to be one of your staple damage abilities. You can upcast it later on to even higher spell slots, dealing way more damage. It's a great spell. You'll be using this forever. At 6th level, the Light Cleric gets the usual, another level 3 spell slot and channeled divinity charge. You also get the improved Warding Flare domain ability. You got Warding Flare when you first took the subclass. It's the reaction that lets you impose disadvantage on somebody's attack against you by basically blinding them with a flash of light. Now you can use that on your party members. If they get attacked, you can flash the attacker to impose disadvantage on the attack against that party member. So basically this just makes you more of a team player. Same effect, but now you can use it on your teammates. At 7th level, as usual, you're going to get your level 4 cleric spells, and you will unlock 2 domain spells, which for the Light Domain are Guardian of Faith and Wall of Fire. So we talked about Guardians of Faith before. It's a very good spell, plenty of uses for it. Wall of Fire can also be very good, but there's some things you should keep in mind when you go to use it. It does an absolutely insane amount of damage if enemies or friendlies have to walk through it for any amount of steps. They're going to get burned multiple times and it will tear them to shreds. So if you can cast it down a long hallway and enemies have to walk through it, they'll be dead before they get to the other end. And it's a concentration spell. So if you forget that you're channeling this Wall of Fire and you cast something else like Bless, that's a concentration spell, it'll disrupt the concentration from Wall of Fire to cast Bless. Your Wall of Fire will disappear and Bless will show up. So just keep that in mind. Pay attention to your concentration spells. At 8th level, the Light Cleric will receive the Potent Spellcasting ability, which will increase the damage of your cleric cantrips. And you'll also get a level 4 spell slot and your second feat. So, like we said before, pick whatever you need. 9th level will grant the level 5 cleric spell list, as well as the 2 domain spells, Destructive Wave and Flame Strike. Both of these are very heavy hitting area of effect spells. Destructive Wave can either be cast as a radiant or necrotic version, so when you go to cast it, you'll have to choose. You click on the spell, it'll bring up 2 choices, a radiant version that does thunder damage and radiant damage, and then there's one that does thunder damage and necrotic damage. So it's a pretty big blast radius around the cleric when you go to cast it. Pretty good sized spell. Flame Strike is a smaller area that you'll pinpoint target. Basically a pillar of radiant fire will blast down and deal strong damage to any enemies that are within that area. At 10th level, as usual, you're going to get your level 5 spell slot. You're going to get a cantrip. You're going to get Divine Intervention. We already covered the 4 choices for Divine Intervention. They're the same for all 7 subclasses. And remember, you only get to cast it once. The 11th and 12th levels will again see you earn your level 6 cleric spells and then a 3rd and final feat. So it's pretty safe to say that the Light Cleric is very different from the Life Cleric. You're given far more DPS caster tools. You get Fireball, you get Wall of Fire, you get couple different things that the Life Cleric doesn't have access to. If you're interested in playing a Cleric as more of like a fire mage, the Light Cleric is the way to go. The next subclass we're going to talk about is the Trickery Domain. This is the domain that Shadowheart originally has selected. It makes sense for her character that she would belong to this domain, but you are absolutely able to and probably should change what domain she's a part of on your first playthrough at least, because Trickery Domain clerics are not bad by any means, but they're much more niche as far as their specialization and the abilities you'll get and everything than some of these other domains are. So overall, you might find another domain to be a better choice, but it's up to you, entirely up to you. You can play with this one, no problem. When you first choose the domain, you will receive Blessing of the Trickster, which is unique. It allows you to grant advantage on stealth checks to somebody else. You can't cast this on the cleric themselves. If you were making your cleric your sneaky character, this ability can't be cast on them, so it's almost like it wants you to have another party member be the stealth person, and the Trickery Cleric is just there to grant that bonus to that person. I find it strange, but I'm sure somebody out there has found a lot of use for this. You also get the Charm Person and Disguise Self domain spells to start with. Charm Person is great. It'll help you with dialogue options and passing certain charisma checks and stuff like that. Disguise Self is also fantastic. It'll allow you to resize your character. So if you're playing like a Dragonborn or a High Elf or, whatever regular sized humanoid person, there's certain holes that you'll run into that your character won't fit into. You can climb through a wall and get into a later part of the dungeon, but your character's too big to fit. Well, you can use Disguise Self to turn yourself into a midget, basically, and squeeze through. Disguise Self is also a ritual spell, so if you cast it outside of combat, it doesn't cost you a spell slot, so you can do this as many times as you want. It's great. It's an excellent spell to have available. At second level, the Trickery Cleric will receive their normal spell slot, Turn Undead, and Divinity Charge, and also they'll get the domain skill Invoke Duplicity. This one's pretty cool. It allows you to create a clone it'll help you out by granting your allies advantage on attacks if the clone is close enough to the person they're attacking. It's pretty good. At third level, you're going to receive the normal level 2 cleric spells from the spell list, as well as the 2 Trickery Domain spells for this level, which are Mirror Image and Pass Without Trace. Both of these spells are very good. Mirror Image is absolutely ridiculous in combat. It gives you 3 little clones around you that each boost your armor class by 3. Every time an attack misses that character, they lose one of their clones. Pass Without Trace is plus 10 on stealth checks to you and all nearby allies. If you're trying to sneak through places and you have to sneak your whole party through, Pass Without Trace is the spell to have for that, for sure. Plus 10 on a stealth check is ridiculous. Fourth level, the Trickery Cleric is going to receive level 2 spell slot, the normal ability to choose a cantrip, and their first feat. At 5th level, the Cleric will receive their level 3 Cleric spells, Destroy Undead, Scaling Cantrips, and the Trickery Domain spells, Bestow Curse and Fear. Bestow Curse is a concentration spell that debuffs the target with a curse of your choice. When you go to cast the spell, it's going to bring up the different curse variations, and you'll choose which one suits your current situation the best. Fear is a very powerful crowd control ability. It casts in a cone shape in a direction of your choosing, and will show a horrifying illusion to all enemies. This will make affected targets drop their weapons and attempt to flee from the source of their fear. At 6th level, Trickery Clerics only get the usual Divinity Charge and level 3 spell slot. They don't get a domain-specific ability, which certainly feels like a trick. At 7th level, they'll earn their normal level 4 cleric spells, and the Trickery Domain spells Polymorph and Dimension Door. Polymorph can be cast on a target to turn them into a harmless sheep. This thing doesn't have a lot of health, and if it loses all of its health, it reverts back to the original form with whatever health that form had when you polymorph them. But you can use this to take a dangerous enemy out of the fight for a couple of turns, just have them wandering around the battlefield as a sheep. Anyway, it's great. It's a great ability to have access to. Dimension Door is also a cool one. It's like the Misty Step spell, which is a teleport, except that Dimension Door lets you take a passenger with you, which is really great. Having more mobility is always good. 8th level will see the Trickery Cleric earn their second feat, another level 4 spell slot, and the Divine Strike Nightshade Poison ability. And you guessed it, it adds a bit of poison damage to the hit when you use it. At 9th level, the Trickery Domain Cleric will get their level 5 Cleric spells and 2 Domain spells, which are Dominate Person and Seeming. Dominate Person is a great spell to not only take an enemy out of the fight, but you actually get them fighting for you for a couple of turns, which is pretty awesome. You can have them do damage to their own allies, which is great. Seeming is essentially the same thing as Disguise Self, except you can cast it on your entire party. Once you cast this on your party, what it's going to do is it's automatically going to pick a different form for each character in your party. But what if you were trying to turn them into a halfling or a gnome so that you could squeeze them through a small area? Well, you can. You can go in here and change your disguise, pick whatever you want. So you're not stuck with what it gives you. It's a pretty good spell. There's plenty of uses for this. At 10th level, the Trickery Cleric will get the normal level 5 spell slot, Scaling Cantrips, choice of another cantrip, and Divine Intervention. Same thing as before. You get your 4 choices, make sure you don't waste it. 11th and 12th levels are just like normal. Everybody's 11th and 12th levels are the same. You get your level 6 spells at 11th level, you get your 3rd and final feat at 12th level, and that's max. So, in summary, it's more of a niche thing. You're looking at more of a shadowy, let's sneak around and do not so nice things kind of character, but they're perfectly viable. You absolutely could leave Shadowheart as a Trickery Cleric the entire time, and she will provide you with still excellent utility and even better open world sneaking utility and stuff like that. So definitely an option to keep in mind. The next subclass we're going to take a look at is the Knowledge Domain Cleric. This one's actually unique in that when you choose it, you don't immediately get a passive ability like you do with the others. Instead, what you get to do is choose 2 skills to gain further proficiency in. If you want your character to be more of a learned scholar type, the Knowledge Cleric is definitely the way to go for this. You'll also get the domain spells Command and Sleep, both of which are excellent early game spells, and Command will still be good later on. Sleep, not so much because it's based on the target's hit points. So it's still usable later on if you whittle down their health, but it's not nearly as good as some of the other crowd control abilities in the game, so it won't last you too long. At 2nd level, Knowledge Clerics will be granted the Knowledge of the Ages domain action. This will cost an action and a Channel Divinity charge, and it will allow you to choose an ability, which is Strength, Dexterity, Wisdom, etc. You're choosing one of the stats, and you'll gain proficiency in all skills that are related to that stat. This lasts until long rest. You can't buff 2 skills at the same time. It will override the first one, so keep that in mind. At 3rd level, the Knowledge Cleric will receive the normal level 2 Cleric spells as well as the 2 domain spells, Calm Emotions and Hold Person. Calm Emotions can be used to prevent humanoids in an area from becoming charmed, frightened, or enraged. There's definitely reasons to use it, but it's not going to be one of your go-to spells. Hold Person, on the other hand, is a very good crowd control spell. Be sure to pay attention to the fact that this spell can be upcast. Each level that you upcast it will allow you to attempt to crowd control an additional humanoid target. This spell is super good. You can take 3, 4, 5 people out of a fight by casting this. Attacks against a held target are always critical strikes if the attack is made within a certain distance of the held target. At 4th level, you'll get the normal level 2 spell slot, you get a new cantrip, and you'll get your first feat. At 5th level, knowledge clerics get their level 3 cleric spells, scaling cantrips, the destroy undead ability, and 2 domain spells, which will be the slow and speak with dead spells. Speak with dead is very handy, and I want you to pay attention to the fact that it's a ritual spell, so you can cast this outside of combat without spending a spell slot. It's always great to have some ritual spells on your bar. That being said, I want to talk about slow. This spell might have one of the most hilariously misleading effect descriptions of any ability or skill in the game. It says, and I'm going to read this because I want to directly quote it to you, alter time around up to 6 enemies and slow them. They won't get far, they can't do much, and they're easier to hit. That's the description the game gives you. Now let me tell you what the spell actually does. When you cast it, you'll be able to select up to 6 targets within 60 feet of your cleric. The affected targets get a debuff called Slowed. What does this debuff do? It reduces their movement speed by half. So this is they won't get far. Their armor class and dexterity saving throws are both reduced by 2, which means they're easier to hit. Spells, physical attacks, everything will be easier to hit them with because of those 2 numbers being reduced. And they can only perform either an action or a bonus action. They can't do both in a single turn. And they can't activate any reactions. It is a super powerful spell. The Knowledge Cleric's 6th level is very similar to the Trickery Domains. You get another Channel Divinity charge, you get a level 3 spell slot, but there's no domain ability. Spoiler alert, the next domain we're going to talk about is also like this. It sucks. The 6th level for the 3 that don't get anything doesn't feel great. At 7th level, your Knowledge Cleric will receive the level 4 cleric spells, 2 knowledge domain spells. This time around, that's going to be Confusion and Odaluk's Resilient Sphere. Confusion is great because it's an area of effect crowd control ability. You'll choose an area in a circle and the confusion effect will explode in that area. Any targets that see this pattern that it makes are going to get confused, and they may skip their turn, they may wander around aimlessly, they may attack each other, or they could still attack your teammates. They'll hit anybody around them, but there's a chance that they'll hit their teammates instead. It's a nice spell to have. And Odaluk's Resilient Sphere is more unique because it's more of a utility spell. It surrounds the target in a magical barrier that will prevent the person inside from dealing or receiving damage of any kind. They have their movement speed reduced by half while they're inside of this thing, and they can't hurt anybody, and they can't be hurt through this thing. It's interesting. You can use it as a get out of jail free card, cast it on one of your party members, and they can escape at half speed, or you can use it to imprison an enemy in a sphere that they can't attack through. It's utility because you've got multiple options on how to use it. At 8th level, the Knowledge Cleric receives their 2nd feat, another level 4 spell slot, and the potent spellcasting ability. This makes them the only other domain besides the Light Cleric that gets potent spellcasting. And remember, all the rest of the domains are going to receive a Divine Strike variation. Upon reaching 9th level, the Knowledge Cleric will be granted the level 5 cleric spells, a level 4 spell slot, and the 2 knowledge domain spells, Dominate Person and Telekinesis. We talked about Dominate Person already in the Trickery Domain, just in case you guys skipped that part and you don't know what it was. It's a decent crowd control ability that you can use to get through some tough spots. Telekinesis is probably exactly what you're imagining it is. It allows the cleric to pick up and move things with their mind. You can use it to fling a massive robot at his own teammates, or grab a boss that's standing there next to a ledge and just fling them off the ledge and instantly kill them. There's a ton of things you can do. You can pick up things in the environment and fling it at people. I've actually used telekinesis to grab one of my own allies that was about to have an explosion go off on top of them and fling them out of the radius of the explosion. They took minimal damage from getting slung by telekinesis, but they avoided like 70 explosion damage when this bomb went off. There's all kinds of things you can use telekinesis for. It's a cool spell. Keep your eye on this one. At 10th level, you guessed it, you're going to get your level 5 spell slot, another cantrip, scaling cantrips, and divine intervention. One of 4 choices, one-time use. 11th and 12th levels are also the same as they have been. You get your level 6 cleric spells at 11th, you get your 3rd and final feat at 12th. Up next, we've got the nature domain. Nature clerics are those that worship the gods of the very land itself. They will end up learning quite a few spells from the druid spell list, as well as all of the base cleric spells. Upon choosing the subclass, you'll gain multiple immediate benefits. First of all, you're going to get the Acolyte of Nature ability. This is going to allow you to pick a druid cantrip and a nature-related proficiency. You'll also gain the heavy armor proficiency and the 2 starter domain spells for nature, which are Speak with Animals and Animal Friendship. As you might imagine, both of these help you have a friendlier relationship with animals. You can calm animals with Animal Friendship, basically make it to where they won't attack you. And then Speak with Animals can allow you to actually get story quest progression by talking to animals, just like Speak with Dead, except you can talk to a squirrel or a cow instead of a dead body. Speak with Animals is also a ritual spell, so if you cast it outside of combat, it doesn't cost you a spell slot. You can just use it, talk to the cat. The cat's gonna cuss you out and tell you you're stupid, and then you're gonna be like, man, I'm glad I used that spell and it didn't cost me a spell slot. The 2nd level Nature Cleric will gain the usual Divinity Charge, Turn Undead, and a level 1 spell slot. They'll also get the Charm Animals and Plants domain ability. This one is kind of strange. It spends a Channel Divinity Charge, and it might be the most situational one of these abilities of all the subclasses, because it does exactly what it says. It charms all nearby animals and plants. Spoiler alert, there are enemies in this game that are plants. I'm not sure that it's worth more than blasting a fireball at them. At 3rd level, you're going to gain the normal level 2 cleric spells and also your 2 domain spells, which this time around are Spike Growth and Bark Skin. Spike Growth allows the cleric to choose a location, and it'll cause thorns to grow up out of the ground, and any creatures that are caught inside the area will have their movement speed cut in half, and they will continuously potentially take damage as they move through these spikes. Depending on where you get to place your spike growth, you may end up causing a ton of damage with this, and this can also cause enemy casters to lose concentration on spells. Definitely something to keep an eye out for. Spike growth is not a bad ability. You do have to maintain concentration to keep it going though, so definitely something to keep in mind. Bark Skin is a much more straightforward buff. Turns their skin into tree bark and brings their armor class up to 16. If your character's AC is above 16 and you use Bark Skin on them, nothing happens. Also, Bark Skin requires concentration. This right here, for me, just completely rules it out. I already don't like single target concentration spells. It's hard for me to justify it. Anyway, if I'm wrong about this, someone leave me a comment telling me how dumb I am. Also, if you're enjoying the video, make sure to leave me a like, subscribe to the channel. I'm very appreciative for all the support you guys have been showing. I've gotten much more support than I thought I was going to when I got started. It makes me really excited to get back in and make more videos like this for you guys. So anyway, I appreciate it, travelers. Let's get back to it. 4th level Nature Cleric is going to get the normal level 2 spell slot, choice of a cantrip, and your first feat. 5th level, you're going to get Scaling Cantrips, Destroy Undead, level 3 Cleric spells, and the 2 domain spells, which this time will be Plant Growth and Sleet Storm. Plant Growth is another area denial spell. Basically what this means is you pick an area to cast this into, and it's going to cause plants to grow everywhere in this area. Anyone moving in the area has their movement speed quartered, so you can use this to like strangle up hallways where you know the targets all have to move down a certain hallway. You throw this plant growth in the middle of that and they all have to walk right through it. It's going to take them 4 times as much movement to get through as it normally would. The plant growth is very flammable though, so keep that in mind. You can use this, and if any fire touches the area, all the plants bust into flames and becomes a fire trap. You can use that to your advantage as well. You could get everybody stuck in this area and then set all the plant ring on fire and burn everybody that's stuck inside of it. It could be a two-prong pincer strike. Sleet Storm, the second domain spell. This one's really crazy. It's essentially a concentration spell that exists for the purpose of interrupting other concentration spells. You choose an area once again, except instead of growing plants this time, you'll be blasting down a storm of sleet everywhere. The way it works is that every time the sleet blasts down once per turn, every caster that's concentrating on a spell within that area has to do a saving throw to maintain their concentration, just like they got hit. It also makes an ice surface on the ground, which has the potential to cause those same casters to slip and fall prone. And if you fall prone, you instantly lose concentration on any spells you were concentrating on. So this is like a dual strike as far as interrupting concentration on spells. Definitely a good spell to have. At 6th level, you will get your level 3 spell slot, your Channel Divinity charge, and for the final time, thankfully, nothing else from the domain side. So it sucks, but that's the way it is. 7th level, Nature Cleric. You get level 4 Cleric spells. You get your 2 domain spells. And this time those 2 are going to be Dominate Beast and Grasping Vine. Both of these spells do pretty much exactly what their names imply. Dominate Beast works just like Dominate Person, which we already talked about, but it only works on beasts. You probably won't use it like a ton of times, but it'll be nice when you get to use it. Grasping Vine summons a giant vine. When it's this thing's turn, you can do little vine grasp and try to grab targets and pull them towards the vine. 8th level is going to see you get your level 4 spell slot, your 2nd feat, and for nature you'll get Divine Strike Elemental Fury. This one is unique because the Nature Cleric gets to do one of 3 types of elemental damage with theirs. They can either do cold, fire, or lightning damage, and you get to pick each time. It's not random. So this is a nice ability to have. Being able to switch out damage types in the middle of the fight is always strong. Upon reaching 9th level, the Nature Cleric will obtain their level 5 spells and 2 domain spells, which is Insect Plague and Wall of Stone. Insect Plague is another concentration spell, so as you can see, the Nature Cleric is getting quite a few of those, and it also focuses on area denial just like the others did. You choose a target area, it casts a circle of bugs into the area, and anyone that's in the area will potentially be taking piercing damage while they're inside. They have disadvantage on perception checks, and their movement speed is cut in half. So, similar to the others, except they're also taking piercing damage from getting stung by all these insects that you've spawned. Wall of Stone is basically entirely a utility spell. I say that, but that does not mean that it can't be used in combat. It's very strong in combat for utility reasons. This spell basically summons a Wall of Stone, just like it says. The wall is made up of different stone panels or pieces that each have their own health bar. They can be destroyed individually, but while they're standing there, they block line of sight and they block off a chosen area. So if you, for instance, want to throw a bomb into a room and set the room on fire that has all the enemies in it, and then use a wall of stone to block the doorway closed so they can't get out, then they're stuck in a room that's on fire. 10th, 11th, and 12th levels are the same as always. At 10th, you get your level 5 spell slot, scaling cantrips, you get to choose another cantrip, and divine intervention. 11th, you get your level 6 cleric spells, and then 12th, you get your final feat. This next domain is a fun one. It changed my opinion on the cleric the most out of all the possible subclasses, and I would wager that it'll probably do the same for a lot of you as well. The Tempest Cleric. Listen to this description. I'm going to read this so I don't mess it up. Your faith has made you the very thunder that quakes the black firmament, the lightning coursing through the veins of a terrible storm. Are you going to try to sit there with a straight face and tell me that you don't want that guy on your team? I don't think so. When you first choose the Tempest Domain, you're going to be granted the Wrath of the Storm domain ability. This allows you to use a reaction when someone attacks you to retaliate against their attack with either thunder or lightning damage. You will also gain martial weapons proficiency and heavy armor proficiency. You can be a thunder and lightning knight. That's correct. Yeah. The 2 domain spells you're going to get this time around are Thunder Wave and Fog Cloud. Thunder Wave is insanely good. You use this to deal minor thunder damage to targets in a very small area in front of you. And it has the opportunity to blast your targets right off a cliff and instantly kill them. So that's why that spell is super great. Fog Cloud is also a fantastic spell. This one probably doesn't get nearly enough attention. In combat, it's great. You select an area, you spawn a huge dense cloud of fog, and it blinds and heavily obscures everybody that's inside of it. So you can cast this onto your enemies to blind them, to make them have to move out of the area because they can't attack very far. They can't attack out of the area because they're blinded. So you can use it as a area denial crowd control, or for more utility purposes, let's say you're standing in the middle of town and there's a door that you want to lockpick, but everybody and their mother is standing there staring at you. Well, you drop a cloud of fog and your party stands inside of it. None of them can see what you're doing inside there. Your whole party can disappear through the door, and then the fog is still standing there concealing the whole thing, and you get away scot-free. If you need to rob somebody blind right in front of their face, drop fog, walk up, steal whatever you're trying to steal, and get out of there. At 2nd level, Tempest Clerics receive one of the most powerful abilities in the entire game. I promise you that's not an exaggeration either. Firstly, you're going to get the normal stuff, your level 1 spell slot, your divinity charge, and turn undead, all the normal cleric stuff. The real reward here is the domain ability, Destructive Wrath. This thing is a monster. Whenever you deal thunder or lightning damage, it's going to ask you as a reaction, would you like to spend one of your channeled divinity charges to guarantee that that thunder or lightning damage you just did rolls the maximum possible damage? What if it's an area of effect spell that hits multiple targets and you can guarantee that it deals maximum damage to each one? It's absurd how much damage you end up being able to do. At 3rd level, you're going to receive your level 2 cleric spells and the domain spells Shatter and Gust of Wind. Shatter is a nice thunder damage AoE that does more damage against brittle targets, so enemies that are made out of stone. Gust of Wind is also nice. It's sort of like Thunder Wave, doesn't deal damage, but it pushes targets back, and if you use this spell over top of a cloud that has already been formed, like a cloud of darkness or fog cloud or anything that's a cloud spell, it'll cut a path right through the cloud wherever the wind blasts through, so you can cut yourself a path of safety through poison or darkness or anything dangerous like that. At 4th level, the Tempest Cleric will gain the normal stuff. You get level 1 and 2 spell slots, a new cantrip, and your first feat. The 5th level Tempest Cleric is going to gain level 3 cleric spells, destroy undead, scaling cantrips, and the 2 domain spells, Call Lightning and Sleet Storm. We've already covered Sleet Storm. It's the one that I said was really good at interrupting concentration spells. You cast it and it has a chance to break target's concentration every time it pulses. It also makes ice patches on the ground. Ice patches turn into water patches. Water patches can be electrified, and you're playing the guy that has lightning spells, so it's good. Call Lightning is an interesting spell. There's a few spells like this in the game that you cast it one time, you maintain concentration, and it basically, the spell stays open over to the side as a cantrip, basically. And as long as your character maintains concentration, you can recast the spell every turn without spending another spell slot. You cast this, you pick an area, a lightning bolt strikes down. You maintain concentration, and then next turn you can cast it again, next turn you can cast it again, as long as your concentration doesn't break, and I think it lasts 10 turns. At 6th level, Tempest Clerics get the usual level 3 spell slot and Channel Divinity charge, but they also get a domain ability, finally. The Thunderbolt Strike ability will cause your thunder and lightning damage to push enemies backwards up to 10 feet whenever they get struck. It'll only push enemies up to a certain size, and it doesn't push them super far, but having a caster DPS character that's able to create space between them and enemies is always a strong thing, so this is nice to have. At 7th level, you're going to unlock your level 4 cleric spells, as well as the domain spells Freedom of Movement and Ice Storm. Freedom of Movement is a great buff you can use to prevent your target from being paralyzed or restrained or being slowed by difficult terrain. Ice Storm is a powerful damaging AoE that allows you to capitalize on any wet targets you may be facing, as it doubles the cold damage they take as well. And Ice Storm will leave another giant ice patch underneath the targets, which has a chance to cause them to slip, become prone, lose concentration, all kinds of good benefits that making your targets slip and slide can give you. Upon reaching 8th level, the Tempest Cleric will be granted the normal level 4 spell slot, their second feat, and Divine Strike. 9th level will bring you your level 5 cleric spells, and the 2 Tempest Domain spells, Destructive Wave and Insect Plague. I've already covered both of these in other subclasses, but Destructive Wave is worth mentioning here again because both variations of the spell deal thunder damage, and you can trigger additional effects. So it does a big blast AoE, has a chance to knock targets backwards, has a chance to be guaranteed maximum damage if you use your Destructive Wrath. All kinds of ways you can make this stronger now. 10th, 11th, and 12th levels are again as follows. Level 5 spell slot, a new cantrip, scaling cantrips, divine intervention, level 6 cleric spells, and a feat and a partridge in a pear tree. We still have to do that one more time. I promise you're going to be excited for those 3 levels. I'm skimming over it because it's not fun to talk about 7 times when it's the same thing 7 times, but you're going to be stoked by the stuff you're getting. All right, we've arrived now at the final subclass, the War Domain Cleric. If you're interested in playing a character that's more of the knight in shining armor archetype, can absolutely hold their own in physical combat, and still gets access to all of the cleric's basic spell list, the War Cleric is a completely viable choice. Upon first choosing War Domain, there's a few things you get right away. You'll obtain the War Priest Domain ability, which will allow you to perform an additional attack during your turn by spending a bonus action and a War Priest charge. You get these War Priest charges when you first take this domain. You'll start with 3 of them, and by the end of the game, at 11th level, you'll be topped out at 6 charges. You regain these charges by finishing a long rest. War Domain also gets the martial weapons and heavy armor proficiencies. The 2 War Domain spells you'll get are Divine Favor and Shield of Faith. I'm not a huge fan of either one of these because, as I've mentioned before, I'm not a huge fan of single target concentration spells. It's so easy to be concentrating on one of these spells, granting yourself a buff, and then an enemy stabs you with a tiny frickin' attack and it breaks your concentration, and now all of a sudden you've lost your buff. Concentration can be used for some very strong things, and I just don't think these 2 cut it. They're not terrible, but I would rather cast Bless on 3 party members for the same cost than use either one of these. Bless is a great spell. Absolutely don't sleep on Bless. It's freaking incredible. At 2nd level, the War Cleric is going to get a level 1 spell slot like normal. You're going to get Channel Divinity Charge, Turn Undead, and the domain ability Guided Strike. This one's unique. It allows you to spend your Divinity Charge when you do an attack to add a +10 to the attack roll. Doesn't increase the damage that it does, it just increases the % chance of that attack landing. But this is great. This will help you out on those emergency attacks where you have to get some damage right now. like to stop a countdown from happening, or somebody's about to transform into something and you can stop it if you kill them this turn. This will help that attack land and maybe clutch the fight for you. Third level grants you your level 2 cleric spells and 2 war domain spells, the spiritual weapon and magic weapon. Magic weapon I never used a whole lot because it's a single target concentration buff, increases the attack and damage by +1 for a weapon that you've infused. I'm not going to use it. I would cast Bless on 3 or 4 party members instead. Spiritual weapon, on the other hand, is incredible. This is a bonus action spell, so you can basically take your turn, and then as a bonus action, summon a spiritual weapon that will float there, and then when it's that weapon's turn, you get to control it, and you can make it fly around and attack people for you. The weapons come with one of 3 abilities, depending on which weapon you summon. Each one of these abilities does something a little bit different. It's not hugely important which one you summon. It's just great having the extra damage that you can put out for the cost of a bonus action. It's absolutely absurd. At 4th level, you will get the usual level 2 spell slot, a new cantrip, and your first feat. At 5th level, you get your level 3 cleric spells, destroy undead, scaling cantrips, and 2 domain spells. This time around, it's going to be Spirit Guardians and Crusader's Mantle. Both of these are concentration spells. Spirit Guardians summons some spirits that fly around your cleric in a ring. Any enemies that enter the ring while it's being concentrated on will take either radiant or necrotic damage, depending on which version of the spell you cast, and they have their movement speed cut in half while they're inside the ring. The War Cleric is going to be up in melee range anyway, most likely. Why not try to maintain concentration on Spirit Guardians and have these things spin around you and just do extra damage to anybody you walk up to? Spirit Guardians is a super strong spell. Crusader's Mantle is not terrible by any means. It's still not my favorite spell in the world, but it casts a radius around your cleric that will stay there. It follows your cleric around. Any allies that are within that radius do extra radiant damage with their weapon attacks. It's sort of like magic weapon, but it applies in an area around your cleric and benefits everybody. So, it's better. It's not a single target concentration spell. 6th level war clerics receive the obligatory level 3 spell slot and divinity charge, but fortunately, they are one of the subclasses that receive something else here. You get the War God's Blessing. This ability is essentially exactly the same as the one you got at 2nd level that adds +10 to your attack roll, except now you can use it on your allies' attack rolls when they attack. So now you're more of a team player, handing out extra hits where they're needed. Just remember it costs a channel divinity charge, so you don't have unlimited of these per day. Use it when you need it. 7th level will grant you your level 4 cleric spell list and 2 war domain spells, which are going to be Freedom of Movement and Stone Skin. Freedom of Movement we've already seen. It's a powerful buff spell you can use to prevent a party member from being slowed by difficult terrain, paralyzed, or restrained. So if you need to keep your guys from getting trapped in one place, Freedom of Movement is a great spell. Stone Skin's a bit strange to me. This is a level 4 spell, costs a level 4 spell slot or higher to cast. Requires concentration. You basically have to be in melee range to cast it, and it grants resistance to all bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical sources. The issue that I have with the spell is that the Blade Ward cantrip that you could have had since level 1 does almost exactly the same thing. Effectively, it's a cantrip. You can cast it whenever you want without using a spell slot. It still takes an action, doesn't require concentration, it only lasts 2 turns, but it will prevent half damage from the same things. So this is another situation where I'm sure I'm just dumb about it. Someone, if you know how stupid I am right now, leave me a comment explaining why I'm wrong about this. I'll happily learn. I love learning new things about these classes. That's why I'm diving down into this stuff and we're all learning it together. At 8th level, The War Cleric gains the expected level 4 spell slot, their second feat, and the Divine Strike War Master ability. This one is strange because it adds an additional 1d8 physical damage to the strike, and the physical damage type is determined by the damage type of the weapon in your Cleric's main hand. 9th level will grant you the level 5 Cleric spells, your 2 War Domain spells, Flame Strike and Hold Monster. Both of these spells are incredible. Flame Strike we've already looked at. I told you it's the pillar of radiant fire you call down. It does radiant damage and fire damage, and it's a great spell to have. Hold Monster functions essentially the same way as Hold Person does, which we already covered. It's a crowd control ability you can use to basically paralyze somebody, and they're just held there. Any attacks that come from within a certain distance of those held targets are guaranteed critical strikes. It's fantastic, but Hold Person only works on humanoid targets. Hold Monster works on everything else except undead. Hold Monster can also be upcast to level 6 in order to hold 2 creatures at the same time with it. And then for the final time that we're going to go over this, 10th, 11th, and 12th levels are the same for War Clerics as they are for all the rest of the subclasses. You get your level 5 spell slot, a new cantrip, scaling cantrips, Divine Intervention for 10th level, level 6 Cleric spells for 11th level, and your 3rd and final feat for 12th level. So that's all the subclasses covered. I mentioned before at the beginning of this video that regardless of which domain you end up choosing for your Cleric, you're going to end up with a ton of powerful Cleric-specific spells anyway, and then the domain stuff is just added bonus on top of that. So light Clerics will get Fireball and Wall of Fire, but they also have Create Undead and Blade Barrier and Flame Strike and all of the other Cleric spells that aren't part of their domain, but they still have access to them. The class definitely has much more versatility than people probably give it credit for. I know it had a lot more than I thought when I first started. So with that being said, do not be afraid at all to make your custom character a Cleric and then also run Shadowheart as a Cleric. You'll be perfectly fine having 2 Clerics in the group. Have right at it. There's plenty of different options. If you do end up playing a Cleric, depending on which deity you choose, you and Shadowheart may have some funny dialogue options between the two of you as well, so keep that in mind. If you enjoyed your time here, remember to leave me a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to support the channel further, check out my Patreon. I've got a link to it in the video description below. But I appreciate all of you watching. The support is greatly appreciated. Are you planning on making your main character a Cleric, or are you just going to run Shadowheart as the sole lonely Cleric in the group? Leave me a comment below and let me know what your plan is. But anyway, travelers, that's the end of the video. I appreciate you watching it all. I'm glad you got to see me, and do your best to stay alive. Until next time, see ya.